Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Elise, and this is 10 to Life, your one-stop true crime shop where we talk about everything. You've heard it before, but I'm going to say it again. We talk about the old cases, the current cases, the new cases, the ongoing cases, the conspiracy cases, the red flag cases, the stomach-churning cases, everything. We talk about all of it. So if you haven't seen this channel before, first of all, welcome. I hope you like this channel and appreciate the case coverage today in our video today. And more than that, I hope that you enjoyed enough to where you want to support the channel by hitting subscribe. It is totally free to do it. All you have to do is push that little red button. And for all of my returning subscribers, welcome back. I am so happy to have you guys here with me today. As a reminder to everybody, new, old, far, close, wide, whatever the expression is, make sure that if you're not following me on Instagram, you do so really quick. I will drop it again here. It is @_Annie Elise, and that is the best way to stay up to date with so many cases that are obviously getting updates every single day because I can't always jump onto YouTube right away and pump out a video. So if you want to fully stay in the know and stay updated, go to Instagram, press follow, and that's where you will go. All right. So let's get into today's case because it is a wild one. We've all heard of the terrifying stories of children or women being kidnapped, held for weeks, months, even decades, and then powerfully taking back their lives and escaping captivity. Just to name off a few, there are the Cleveland kidnapping survivors, Amanda Berry, Michelle Knight, and Nina De Jesus, who were all kidnapped by Ariel Castro, keeping them captive for 10 years in his home. 10-year-old Katie Beers, who was kidnapped by John Esposito and was held captive in a tiny bunker for 16 days. 14-year-old Elizabeth Smart, who was kidnapped and held captive for 9 months. Also, 11-year-old JC Dugard, who was held captive for 18 years. And more recently, 13-year-old Jamie Kloss, who was held captive for 88 days. Now, all of these women did the unthinkable and heroically fought for their lives and made it out of the deplorable and unbelievable conditions that they were in. And there are so many more stories like this, and some that we probably have never even heard of yet. But last week, news broke that another occurrence very similar to these that I just spoke of was happening right underneath the noses of the Excelsior Spring community just outside of Kansas City. A lot of new details have come to light in this case, and it is now even more twisted than it looks on the surface. So guys, let's jump right in.
10 to Life with Annie Elise starts right now.
Excelsior Springs is just outside of the Kansas City metro area. The population is around 10,000 people, and it's known as a very friendly and close-knit Midwestern town. Not the kind of town that you would ever think something so dark and so sinister was happening, just inside, the suburbs of these neighborhoods. But unfortunately, that was the case here. In a quiet little neighborhood at 301 Old Orchard Avenue sits an older style, little white house that today is actually boarded up and wrapped with a chain link fence around the entire property. And there is crime scene tape braided throughout the chain links telling the people of the neighborhood that something clearly very gruesome and terrible went down in that house. On the morning of October 7th, 2022, Sierra Tharp was getting ready to go to her first day at her new job at the local bus barn. She asked her grandmother to come to her home on Dawn Shelter Boulevard, which is one street over from Old Orchard Avenue, to watch her 2-year-old child while she went to work. While Sierra was on one of the buses that morning training, she received a call from her grandmother, who was absolutely frantic. Sierra rushed home and was startled to see a frail, starving, and obviously injured woman sitting on her couch, wrapped in a blanket.
My name is Sierra Tharp. I've lived here all my life. I'm 38 years old, and I was the house where that lady luckily came to my door and was brought in.
Just tell us, was it like any other regular morning?
Yeah, actually I was starting a new job.
Okay.
At our bus barn. I was being a monitor for our early childhood center.
Oh, wow.
And I was on the bus, and my grandma called me, and I'm like, it's got to be an emergency. She's like, I'll talk to you when you get home. And she's like, the police are gone. Well, when I got home, I walked in the door, and I'm like, no, they're up the road. And I'm thinking, what the heck? There's tons of cops everywhere. And she just looked at me, and she said, that's where the girl said she was. And I'm like, what? I was like, what girl? And I'm thinking a neighbor.
Yeah. Okay.
And she told me, she said that she was sitting there, and a lady come banging on the door, and she heard screaming. And she opened the door, and the lady said, you got to help me. She said, I've been I've been held captive. She's like, you gotta help me. He's gonna kill me.
Wow.
And she took a minute because she has, an almost 2-year-old in the house.
Yeah.
And then she said, my heart told me that I needed to help.
While the grandmother was watching her great-grandson, she was completely startled when somebody started banging on the door while screaming. She quickly got her great-grandson settled and then opened the door. And there stood a hunched-over woman who was extremely weak, terrified, and starving. She was dressed in latex lingerie, had a metal collar around her neck that was locked with a padlock, which was very much restricting her breathing, and duct tape around her neck that looked as though she had pulled it off from being around her mouth. The grandmother noticed that she had ligature marks on her wrists and ankles, and it was very evident that this woman had been held captive and was physically injured for an extended period of time. And this lady kept screaming, help me, he's going to come back, he's going to kill me. She told the grandmother that she had been held captive since September and that she had been sexually attacked repeatedly. So although extremely frightened, the grandmother stated that her heart told her that she needed to help this woman. So she quickly brought her inside the home, wrapped her in a blanket, gave her some food, and called the police. And she notified the dispatcher of everything that this woman had just told her. So the police arrive at the scene without flashing lights, without sirens, because they didn't want to tip off whoever this person was that had done this to her. The police were incredibly gentle with the woman, understanding just how fragile she must be, and they asked questions as well as took statements from the grandmother and from Sierra. Now, the woman had told police that her friends did not make it and that this man had actually killed them, but it was unknown just how many friends this woman was talking about. And we're going to get to this later on in this story. When the police asked her who this man was, she in fact knew him by name. The man was 39-year-old Timothy Haslett Jr., and he had held her captive in a small room that he built himself in his basement since September. She told the police the way she knew him is that he had picked her up sometime in September off Prospect Street in Kansas City. Remember that street name because we're going to talk more about that as well. So she tells the police her story, what had happened to her, and really just mirrors what she had already told the grandmother. And then she was taken to the hospital via ambulance and was able to point out the home that she was held captive in as they drove past it. The police quickly got to work and put out a bolo on Timothy. The woman had also stated that he had left briefly to take his elementary school-aged child to school that morning, and that's when she had decided to take her chance and escape. Now imagine that. This creep, who was allegedly holding women hostage and doing all sorts of heinous things to them, actually is a father of a young child. It is just horrifying and, of course, extremely alarming. The police knew that they needed to find this man before he got back to his home, before he destroyed any evidence, and of course, before he hurt anybody else. So while the police officer sat outside his house waiting for him to arrive back home, another police officer was actually able to pull Timothy over after he dropped his child off at school, and he pulled him over on an unrelated incident. And it just so happened that he actually had 2 warrants out for his arrest. So he was immediately arrested and taken in for questioning.
Everardo Miranda, who lives a couple doors down from Timothy Haslett, filmed the moments Haslett was taken into custody.
I could have never imagined that happened here in Excelsior Springs.
In the exclusive video to Channel 9, Miranda thought Haslett was being arrested after calling police because of complaints about the dog.
Oh man, I felt bad because they took him to jail for the dog, and I go to sleep and I wake up to find out this crazy thing happened just right next door to us.
Miranda says he rarely saw Haslett, only to let the dog in and outside, and never saw the woman who ran for help.
What that woman went through, my heart breaks for her. Hopefully he rots in jail. He should not see sunlight ever again. Hopefully things get better around here, and I'm trusting the police officers around here to, keep us secure.
So who is Timothy Haslett Jr., besides like a creep of all creeps? Well, he's a 39-year-old father to an 8-year-old boy who has lived in the home in Excelsior Springs since at least 2017. He previously resided in Kansas City in 2010 and then in Independence until around 2015. But he originally hails from Marion County in southern Illinois. He attended school in Illinois and then resided in nearby Vernon until around 2008. He appears to have no family residing in Kansas City area, not at all. And public court records tell us that he married in 2013, but filed for divorce just 2 years later when his son was just under 1 year old. And while they were divorcing, he maintained joint legal custody of the boy, but then became the primary custodial parent. After a petition with the court, the child primarily resided with Timothy, and he was not responsible for paying child support, and instead, his ex-wife was ordered to pay him $400 a month. The custody arrangement was that she would get their son every other weekend and one evening each week. So Timothy also, for work, spent years working as a Union Railroad employee. His public Facebook profile lists him most recently as an employee of M&H Contractors, a Kansas City-based subcontractor that does rail maintenance work. Courts in Missouri, Kansas, and Illinois show no history of Timothy having been charged with anything above a traffic infraction. So who was this guy who had no legal crazy history except for traffic violations? But he did have at least 21 moving violations across Missouri and Illinois. But that's really all we know about this guy's legal background, and nothing in there that screams red flags or screams anything really to give true cause as to be concerned. So following his arrest on October 7th, police began searching his residence, and they were removing tons of items. And this all as neighbors sat in lawn chairs outside and watched while cadaver dogs worked the scene and police brought out bags and bags of evidence. One neighbor who has a view from his backyard into Timothy's backyard stated that he saw law enforcement carrying out giant blue barrels from the basement. Now that gives me a really queasy feeling in my stomach, because anytime I hear that barrels are involved in anything, whether it is the Drew Peterson case, whether it is the Jeffrey Dahmer case, or now this case, it makes me think there could more than likely be bodies or body parts in those barrels. And we also know that this woman who had survived said that her friends did not make it. If they didn't recover any women as they were pulling out evidence and any other survivors, what's in the barrel? What's in the barrel? Or, sorry, barrels, plural. So news crews filled the streets, taking videos and photos of the police shoveling in and out of the house with hands full of what is believed to be evidence.
It's a scary world to be raising my daughter in. For Alyssa Meredith, especially in being in my hometown, the crime scene just down the street from her house is like nothing she's ever seen before. There's never been this much activity in Excelsior. For hours, neighbors sat and watched as detectives took bags of evidence out of the house on the corner of Old Orchard Avenue.
This is going to be a multi-day process.
Police say a woman ran from the home, screaming for help on Friday morning.
It was readily apparent that she had been held against her will for a significant period of time.
She told police she was kidnapped and she also says there are more victims. We asked, police won't comment on that.
This is an ongoing, we continue to find more and more stuff.
A cadaver dog also searched the property. Video from News Chopper 9 shows detectives combing through evidence on the side of the house. Still, no specifics on what they found.
We just want to make sure that we leave no stone unturned.
What they will say is this investigation will take a while.
The nature of the crimes. So it just makes it so that we can't finish it in a day. That's the reality of it.
Now, neighbors are waiting to learn what exactly that reality looked like.
Excelsior is a small community, so it's kind of just, it's shocking.
Neighbors also did interviews with the media, talking about Timothy and what they knew about him. One neighbor stated that he has always been pretty sketchy and described him as mountain man-ish. She stated that he was reclusive and very unfriendly, and that he would never raise his garage door all the way. Instead, he would raise it to about mid-thigh level and then crawl underneath it to get inside, which, hello, that is like a huge red flag, and to me indicates that there is something going on in there that he just did not want people to see. So as dusk fell and the day turned into night, police set up floodlights and continued investigating the scene. There was a lot to pull out and a lot to recover. They worked through the night, spending 3 days collecting things from the home and gathering all of the evidence that they could. The Excelsior Springs Police received assistance from Kansas City crime scene investigators, Missouri State Highway Patrol, and other local agencies. And in an extremely unsettling revelation, court documents revealed that along with other important evidence that was retrieved, the police had retrieved chains, ropes, restraints, whips, and handguns, indicating that something truly horrific had been happening inside this house. On Monday, October 10th, police boarded up the windows of the home and put a chain link fence around the entire property to keep the public from canvassing the area. And on Tuesday, October 11th, Timothy had his first hearing in front of a judge and was charged with first-degree kidnapping, first-degree RAPE, and second-degree assault. The judge went ahead and entered a not guilty plea for him while he waited to be appointed a public defender. His bond was set at $500,000, and the conditions, if released, would be no contact with the victim, GPS monitoring, and not possessing any weapons. I believe his bond was also increased in the more recent hearing, but TBD on that. I'll let you know as soon as I verify. And he also had his first preliminary hearing set, which is scheduled for December 2nd of this year. Diving into old police call logs, I discovered that there actually had been multiple calls to Timothy's home in the last year. In fact, police visited his home on 3 separate occasions. Now, 2 of the 3 times were done to check on Timothy's well-being. One of the 2 well checks was from his dad, who lives in Florida, and this was on November 23rd, 2021, after he had not heard from him in a while. And then the other was from a coworker on December 31st, 2021, when he didn't show up to work one day. But then that 3rd call wasn't a wellness check, and it was on July 5th of this year, and it was connected to an animal control concern about an off-leash and unfriendly dog at the home. But still, 3 visits to the home. Who knows who may have been inside at the home? Who knows what condition, what objects, what evidence could have been seen to the naked eye? But if this does prove to have been going on for quite some time, which we're going to talk about more here in a second, it's just one of those cases where it's like people were at the home, they saw the home, there was opportunity, and it makes this all the more frustrating. And it's my personal opinion that this has been going on for quite some time. Law enforcement hasn't stated as such, but look at this photo from Timothy's Facebook account from March 2020. He's posing with his son in this picture, and he has what looks to me like a clear and clean bite mark on his arm. Now, what do you think of that? It looks pretty obvious to me, but could it have been a consensual bite mark? Could it have been just having, rough intercourse with somebody who is consensual? Who knows? But looks to me like a pretty clean-cut human bite mark. So let's talk a bit more about what's been uncovered about Timothy, so we can try to piece together all of these things and what the truth is here and how many victims there really are. How deep does this really go? Many people who know Timothy have come out to say that he is very anti-women's rights and constantly uses fallacies and fallacious arguments to try to hinder debate. He posted many disturbing things to his Facebook account, just absolutely degrading women in general over the last few years as well. One post you can see here reads, "Apparently there is no space left in this world for responsible people holding qualifications for higher paying jobs like CDL anymore. This is why I don't date anymore. It's because people are so effing disgusting that I'd hate myself for polluting my own life with their presence, much less allowing them to influence my son. I'm perfectly fine waiting until sex robots become more economically viable." Okay. A pretty loaded statement, let me just say. A pretty loaded post there. And let me just say, my guy, I don't think you were very patient waiting for those sex robots because you tied a poor woman up in your basement to do with how you pleased, whatever you wanted, allegedly. It's just absolutely disgusting. And there are a ton more posts like this that get extremely political. So I'm going to spare you on those here, and you can look if you want yourself. But on July 13th of this year, he made a post about how most of vasectomy appointments are made by women for their husbands and how women push these procedures on men instead of taking a sliver of responsibility for their own actions. It's just extremely evident how much this man hates women. And let me just say, why should women have to put medication in their body every single day just to ensure that they are protected from unwanted pregnancies? Why does all of the responsibility always fall on the woman? What's the problem with a guy getting a vasectomy? I mean, riddle me that. So when I came across this post on TikTok by a Kansas City defender, it took me even deeper into the rabbit hole of this case. Watch this video.
I am a little upset right now. The reason I'm upset is because we got 4 young ladies that have been murdered within the last week here off of 85th and Prospect. We got a serial killer again, and ain't nobody saying nothing. the media is not covering it. We got 3 young ladies that are missing. Ain't nobody saying a word. What is the problem? Why can't we get some cooperation? Where's our community leaders? Where's our activists? Where's our public officials? Where's our police department? Where is those folks at? In President Gardens. Come on now. We need to start knocking doors. We need to start making sure that this is brought to the light. We cannot continue to let this happen.
And that's not all, guys. I did some research on Facebook and came across this post. And it says, it's worth noting that Tim's employer, M&H Contracting, has a couple of locations, with the 85th and Prospect Paseo area being in the middle of these 2 locations. Anyone else remember the video PSA a few weeks ago from a Kansas City man warning that there was a Kansas City serial killer, and said several women had gone missing from the 85th and Prospect area? Remember, Prospect was that street that was very close to this. And remember, this woman says that she was picked up by Timothy in that Prospect area. So police denied this rumor, but the woman that escaped Tim's house says that he abducted her in early September in Kansas City off Prospect, and then drove her back to his house in Excelsior Springs. And remember, she said that she had escaped, but that she had friends or others that didn't make it. Also, think of the barrels. So the PSA video was circulating in mid-September. Maybe we and the police should have taken it more seriously, is how this post wraps up. Now listen, I'm not dogging on law enforcement here, but it is a fact that in most cases when adult workers, I hope you know what I'm saying there, go missing, they do get the short end of the stick when it comes to investigating what happened. Not to mention just people of color in general. Now, I'm not trying to create a huge debate here. That is just a simple fact. More times than not, if you're a victim, unless you are blonde and white, you are not getting on mainstream media networks. That's just how it is. And then you throw adult work into the mix, and it's a sure bet that there won't be much coverage on it. A perfect example is this case. Have you seen it on Good Morning America? Have you seen it on Fox? Have you seen it on CNN? I haven't, but if you have, tag me in it, because prove me wrong. So I will say this though, sometimes this also happens because it can be very difficult to know an adult worker's true identity, making the detectives' jobs much harder to find them. When you don't have anything to go off, or if you don't even know their real name, it does make it difficult. So that does play into this as well. One study from 2008 stated that it has been estimated that women involved in selling themselves on the street are 60 to 100 times more likely to be murdered than women who don't. In addition, homicides of adult workers are notoriously difficult to investigate, and as such, many cases remain unsolved. Another study by Crime Scene Cleanup stated that 3 of the most common situations of adult worker victims includes homicide, DV, and sexual attacks. Now, does that sound familiar with this case? So I reached out to an old friend of Timothy's to get more information about this and see if the Prospect area was known to have a lot of adult workers. Could this have been a pattern? Could this have been a targeted area? And she stated that Prospect is 100% an area where they hang out and where they work. She stated that Prospect is also not the greatest area in general, and even with a quick Google search, you will probably see that it's not the best area to be in and that there is a lot of crime in that area. So my question here is, did Timothy possibly know this, and that these are the types of workers that are heavily populated in this area? Did he think that they were an easy target and that nobody would really miss them or nobody would know them? Because I think he was probably 100% certain, without a doubt confident, that he could get away with harming women, especially if he went after those who are most vulnerable because of their trade. Another element to this is, could it have possibly been racially motivated? Now, evidence on his Facebook shows that he is a radical who speaks against BLM. We also know that his surviving victim is black. So were her friends or his potential other victims also people of color? Now, I hate to even think about this, but I'm wondering if he is taking his sick and sadistic fantasies of controlling women in general out on his captives, which would explain the whips found, the dog collar, the padlock, the restraints, all of it. And then from there, does he enjoy absolutely just beating the tar out of them and sexually attacking them until he ends up ultimately disposing of them and putting them in a barrel and killing them. Because in my opinion, this guy clearly hates women. So is it all women, or is it a specific group of women? Because also look at this post from September 17th. It says, "No woman will ever love you the way your mother did. Everything that a woman puts into you is for her survival, but everything that your mother puts into you is for your survival." I mean, first of all, can you just say, mommy issues, mommy issues? Say it with me, mommy issues. But second, I wonder what he was thinking in this moment when he made this post. Was he thinking that his captive would actually love him, or was he mad? Because was she pretending to love him just to be able to survive the situation and possibly become free? He makes it clear in this sentence, everything a woman puts into you is for her survival. Is he saying survival metaphorically, or does he mean her literal survival? As I said, not many news networks are covering this case because there are a lot of elements, I believe, that are involved that mainstream media just doesn't like to talk about. So we're really not hearing a lot of updates. We have to actually kind of dig them out ourselves and see what people are saying and piece that together, because they have all of their political agendas, regardless what side you sit on and all of that, to where they only report on certain things. Some things are too taboo, they won't talk about it. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are. I'm curious to know what you've heard about this case, what your thinking is on this matter, and what you think, his plans were all along. Did he have more victims? Was he targeting women in general because he hates women and has mommy issues? Was he targeting a specific group because he thought he was more likely to get away with it? Where is his son? I just can hope and pray to God that he's with either the mother, assuming she is a fit parent, or he's with somebody who is taking care of him. Also, if the son was living in that house, did he know what was going on inside that house? Did he ever see these women? It just blows my mind, the level of evilness in some people and truly disgusting habits and things that they get off on. It just irks me to my core. So I'm continuing to look into this case, researching it, figuring out what else we can dig out, because like I said, nobody's really talking, which is just so annoying and stupid anyway. So I will keep you updated as soon as we learn more, but I want to hear what your comments are on this. Do you think that she is a singular victim? Or do you think there are multiple? Just let me know that. Even if you don't have tons of theories, let me know that simple question in the comments below. And like I said, don't forget to follow me on Instagram to stay up to date, since I can't always jump on YouTube right away, so that if you want to be updated in this case and other cases, you can just, follow me over there. It's @_Annie Elise. All right, guys, thanks again for tuning in today. I know it was not an easy one to listen to, and it might get a little heated in the comments, so I just ask that you guys please be respectful of everybody's opinions. I don't want this to become some heated, hateful debate, so please just keep it clean and keep it nice in the comments. All right, guys, I'll keep you updated, and until the next one, stay safe.